One-time Disney Channel star Mitchel Musso is arrested and charged after a drunken incident this past weekend in Texas.
There's a lot of pressure in being a child star. You suddenly have fame, you suddenly have wealth, you suddenly have power, and you might not even be 10 years old, you know.
Entertainment attorney Jonathan Handel says seeing child celebrities fall into legal trouble as adults is not uncommon.
And that brings with it pressures that in many cases can lead, frankly, to addiction issues, to alcohol, which is implicated allegedly in the situation here with Mitchell, drugs, uh, other behaviors that are dysfunctional.
Musso, now 32 years old, is known for his roles in Hannah Montana, Pair of Kings, and Phineas and Ferb. The former child star found himself in legal trouble on August 26th in the Dallas, Texas suburb of Rockwall. According to the city's police department, a 911 call came in at about 7:15 that evening, reporting a disturbance at a hotel. Officials say an intoxicated Musso stole a bag of chips and began eating them. When he was asked to pay for the chips, Musso, quote, became verbally abusive before walking out without paying. He was later arrested and charged with public intoxication and theft of an item under $100.
People do stupid things when they're intoxicated, and sometimes far more stupid things than this is alleged to be. But it's not a situation where someone is particularly in a law enforcement oriented state like Texas where they're going to give him a pass because he was drunk and send him home in a taxi cab, or an Uber. This was a situation, again, allegedly, where he, committed petty theft, even if it may have been, $3.29. They're not giving him a pass on that, and especially because of the attitude that he displayed, allegedly.
On top of those charges, Musso was also charged for several outstanding traffic warrants, including failure to display driver's license, expired registration, and violating a promise to appear. Handel says those extra charges could have influenced bail.
Yeah, there were descriptions in the press that he had outstanding traffic related or vehicle related warrants. Um, Whether that was registration or what exactly that is. I mean, failing to register is usually, or having a license is usually not considered criminal. But of course, driving without on an expired license or on an unregistered vehicle can be, potentially be treated that way. It's a matter of state law as to whether it's considered an infraction or an actual misdemeanor, for example. And we don't really have the details on that, but that could have influenced the bail decision, I suppose, as well.
Based on the offense, though, Handel says it's unlikely Musso will be sentenced to any jail or prison time.
You know, Anything's possible, but I think the likelihood that he faces jail time for something like this, I mean, is not great. There's no allegation that he physically assaulted anybody. Um, he allegedly was belligerent and then, I guess stormed out or something, refused to pay and left the building, left the hotel, I guess it was. Uh, so, uh, you know, uh, Jail would seem, I mean, unless there is some, sort of extensive record of, misbehavior that we just don't know about, jail would seem excessive.
Back in 2011, when he was just 20 years old, Musso was arrested after failing a breathalyzer test. But according to Handel, that run-in with the law probably won't be brought up in relation to this case.
In general, evidence of so-called past bad acts um, only come up really during the trial phase. Only come up if they're closely relevant to the current charges. And here, um, we don't know exactly what evidence the police had that he was intoxicated. I mean, was there a breathalyzer in this case, for example, even though there's no automobile involved? Um, it would seem unlikely that past record would come in during the trial phase. In other words, that it would be too prejudicial and that would outweigh the evidentiary value. Now, during the sentencing, um, for example, if part of the if he is found guilty, if part of the sentencing is you know, uh, alcohol addiction classes and things of that sort, it certainly would be relevant in the in a pre-sentencing report, for example. But that's after the guilt phase if he is found guilty.
Instead, because of that past infraction, Handel says Musso's attorneys could argue he has a substance abuse problem.
Given that he failed a breathalyzer apparently or allegedly several years earlier in a vehicular case, if that is in fact the case, I think there's going to be a presumption that he has substance issues related to alcohol. Um, but that's also something that there would be investigation of that in at least relating to a post finding of guilt with regard to a sentencing phase, and that probably is the most likely argument that a defense lawyer would make, given the relatively small nature of what he's alleged to have done there, the theft and so forth. I suspect that an attorney would argue for diversion into some kind of an alcohol treatment, alcohol addiction kind of program, and for either no custodial sentence at all or a suspended sentence contingent on completing successfully completing treatment and staying out of trouble for a certain period and things of that sort. I think there's probably a strong argument for that. And
Handel says Musso's career trajectory and past substance use could explain what led up to this incident.
if you couple that with, um, in some cases with not as much continued fame and power as someone had as a child star, and here Mitchell's career turned to voice acting. He's worked fairly consistently in the last few years, but it's not at the level of it's not the level of Leo DiCaprio, for example, and so you know one can assume that there may be a disappointment in the current role, the current situation for someone like Mitchell versus what he had as a younger child.
Musso spent just one night in jail before he posted bond and was released. Reporting for Law&Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.